Brendon Heinst from Trptk, and it's the third and last episode. I'm sorry.
It's all good things must come an end. Yeah.
All good things come to an end, but we saved. It's not the best for last, but it's one of the most important things. It's preparation, and what do you need for recording? What equipment do you use? So we're very curious about the gear you use, and because we mostly talked about high res, dithering, but then it's all recorded.
Exactly.
So
what happens before?
What happens before that? So what's one of the pieces of gear you always need when you record a session?
A good musician, I'd say. That's
apart from the band.
No, but really, it's something that a lot of people overlook. Both audio engineers and audiophiles as well. They focus on the equipment and they focus on the electronical things, but it all happens with the musicians themselves. So that's it sounded a lot more cheesy than it was meant, but really it's really the most important part of anything.
It's like the tires on the car.
Exactly, yeah, and I would much rather listen to a super crappy MP3 or some kind of wax roll of like the most amazing musicians ever than hearing shitty musicians in super high res.
Well, that's a very interesting point, because the sampler CDs.
Of course, yeah.
And the viewers of Alpha Audio know we never use audiophile music for testing. First of all, the good recordings sound good and everything. We just discussed that during lunch, and it's crappy for testing because it always sounds good. But it's not music. It's like, you hear this string over there and the harmonic over there, and it's show music.
It is, yeah.
Elevator music.
Yeah.
But I get your point. You'd rather listen to good music on a wax roll than crappy music in high res.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it really starts with that.
Yeah.
The second thing, of course, is the instrument choice. A lot of musicians have their own instruments, of course, so that makes it very, very easy. But when you record piano, of course, you're not going to lug your piano with you, so you have to find a good room with a nice sounding instrument in it. So where do you find one? What kind of piano suits what kind of music? And even two Steinway Model Ds built in 2 different years will sound completely different.
Really?
Absolutely. So there's way more piano brands as well, because a lot of people just think piano, they think of Steinway, but there's Fazioli, there's Bechstein, there's so many different beautiful instruments.
Okay.
And you really have to think about what kind of instrument do you think will fit with the music. And then it's a matter of what place. And with the piano, it often links together because you don't want all of the transporting costs.
They can drop.
Sorry?
They can drop, we know that.
They can drop. Pianos can drop. Yeah, you don't want them to, but they can. It's a function. But so, it also really depends on what kind of room that you record in. And then comes all of the gear and like the processes that are at play. Yeah. We as a label, we really try to record in bigger spaces. It's the same kind of philosophy that Morten Lindberg from 2L uses.
Yeah,
the bigger your space are, the farther away your first reflections are, so your sound gets less muddled and you get a lot nicer sound. Your direct sound becomes nicer, and your indirect sound becomes a bit more lush as well, because bigger rooms tend to have longer and lusher, more diffuse reverbs.
Yeah.
So that's all that part to answer your question now. It's
very important. I didn't even think about it. It's pretty stupid, to be honest, because you need artists.
I mean, it's not really stupid. As an audio platform, of course, you
focus on the gear, but
of course, yeah, and it's just something that most people, if you listen to a recording, you generally never listen to what kind of instrument. I mean, like music geeks like myself, my wife who's a classical cellist, will definitely also listen to the instrument.
Yeah.
But the first thing that comes to mind for most of the listeners, especially the audiophiles, is how is this recorded? What's the frequency curve of the recording? Like, does it sound sharp or bassy or whatever? So, yeah, of course. But what a lot of people don't realize is that actually a lot of this sound, especially if you're recording naturally like we do, We try to at least.
Yeah.
The variances in different instruments will actually make much more of a difference than what kind of microphones or cables or whatever you use.
Yeah, I can imagine acoustics.
Absolutely, yeah. So we actually get a lot of hi-fi reviewers, who say like, "Oh, this is amazing. What microphones did you use?" And we always have to tell them like, it sounds amazing because one, it's an amazing musician. B, it's a beautiful instrument. We've done a viola da gamba recording with the country's and most likely the world's best viola da gamba player on an instrument that I think was 350 years old or something.
Wow.
It's a piece of history you're playing, and the sound was incredible. The church was incredible that we recorded it as well. And then the hi-fi reviewers go like, "Hey, that sounds amazing. What kind of converters did you use?" So it's always like, there's this tendency to go towards gear and not think about the whole chain that's involved.
Yeah, but it's mostly the same at the playback side. It's a little bit off topic, I'm sorry, but I always get the question, which speaker do I need, or which amplifier do I need, or it's kind of sharp, which cable can fix this issue. Look at your acoustics, man.
Yeah.
It's so much more important. And I see a picture, it's like tiles and no damping, and I think, oh man, you can never fix this.
Acoustics first.
Yeah, acoustics first.
Yeah.
Please.
Fix the room and then put stuff
and at the recording side, it's artist and instruments first.
Absolutely. It's the same, and it's just the other way around. So it's the musicians, the instrument, and the space, and then of course the way of recording. So for us, Trptk specifically, we have a certain kind of way to record things. When I was studying for my master's degree that I did with Ilko Grimm, who was also in your program, I studied towards what makes a natural sound in recording. Imaging wise, sonically, how can you make something believable, right? So you're listening here, and mine was specifically in 7.1 surround, but something that had a sort of downwards compatibility, if you will, to stereo and 5.1. So that if you would sit here behind the mastering console or on your couch at home, if what you want to do, or at least what I want to do, is create some soundstage in front of you that will sound like the real thing, right? As though the musicians are right in front of
hard.
you. It is. It is harder than you might think, in the sense of I personally thought when I started my thesis, like, this is going to be easy peasy, right?
How hard can it be?
Exactly, put up a couple of microphones and that's about it.
Yeah.
But there's much more behind it. Yeah. So while I was studying for my master's degree, I wanted to develop a microphone system that would sound as natural as possible in terms of imaging, in terms of just the sonic qualities as well.
Yeah.
So I came up with something that I call optimized omnidirectional array. So it's, something that I hope, at least
works.
Yeah, I hope it works. I called it optimized because it's based on what was used actually by DECA. It's the so-called DAC Tree. So you have three microphones. It's quite well known. It's sort of like triangle.
I know
about
the DAC Tree.
Yeah.
So
So it's something that that has been in existence for a very long while already.
Yeah.
But if you look at the imaging of a DAC Tree, it's quite sort of like wide apart. Even though there's a center microphone, there's like some sound cloudy things in the left, and there's some sound cloudy things in the right, and so a little bit in the middle, but there's like nothing really that connects everything together. So I was thinking, obviously you would want omnidirectional microphones because omnidirectional microphones have a much more natural sound. They're pressure microphones instead of pressure gradient microphones, which, not to go too deep into the rabbit hole, just have a much more natural frequency response. So I wanted to use something that had omnidirectional microphones and that was optimized in terms of imaging, so optimized omnidirectional array. I came up with actually like the same triangle. I did a comparison between, I think, 7 or 8 different standard microphone systems that some people use. So the DAC Tree, then we have like ORTF, we have XY, and all those kind of things. and had them be compared not only by me as an audio engineer, but also by some completely untrained people. So
That's
some people
interesting.
who have never even listened to a good hi-fi setup, to some audio files as well, as well as 2 extra audio engineers. So I wanted to have some kind of mix. And what I noticed was people naturally prefer omnidirectional microphones. That's one.
Oh, that's interesting.
And the DAC Tree kind of setups were also really preferred by most people, which I thought was going to be a little bit more of a, one person would like this and some other people would like that.
And which people preferred the DAC Tree, both the untrained and the trained?
Well, it was funny. One person actually, because it was a blind test, so the people didn't know what they were called. Most people didn't even know what it meant in either case, but we just didn't tell people. We just call them recording A, B, etc.
Yeah.
And there was one guy who just, he could pick out the DAC Tree recordings in every little test that we did. And so afterwards, I was asking him hey, what kind of recordings do you listen to? Yeah, I mostly love the DECA recordings from the 60s and 70s. So he's like, yeah, well. This is why. Yeah.
That's interesting.
But imaging-wise, there's some very interesting things going on, and by the fact that it uses omnidirectional microphones, it sounds very natural in frequency domain and in time response as well. So that is now the base for all of our recordings. The specific format of the triangle that we set up, and then with 2 added rear microphones, because that was what my thesis was about in the end. How to make a surround recording, which is something that Trptk focuses on very heavily, making surround recordings that make you feel when you're here I'm at the Trptk in Utrecht or the Doelen in Rotterdam.
Yeah, does it add to the acoustics?
How do you mean?
The surround recordings, they capture more of the space.
Absolutely.
So you can recognize the acoustics of a certain space.
Yeah. It's like I sometimes compare it to when you're sitting somewhere and you have a beautiful, just a pane of glass, and through that glass you're looking onto a landscape. So that's stereo for you. You're sitting here and you're looking through a window on something really beautiful.
Yeah.
In surround, you're not behind that glass anymore. You're just sitting there.
You're there.
Yeah. So even more than anything technical, it's just something very primal to us as humans. When you have sound all around you, it makes it much more believable that you're actually there than when it's just in front of you.
True.
Very simply put. To make a phantom image appear, happen in your lateral or behind you, it proved a little bit more of a difficult task. So that was what a lot of my my thesis focused on, how to make this happen as much as we can, even though your ears have tremendous difficulties with it. But in the end, it resulted in this specific area that we use. So we have this spider, basically, that we put on a tripod, and that is always the basis for all of our acoustic recordings. So wherever we go in the church, you'll always see this big, sturdy German-made tripod, so you know it's good if it's German-made, with the Danish, the DPA Spider on top of it, and then 5 of these bad boys here, the DPA 4006, all custom matched to be one surround system. So all of their frequency characteristics have been matched together.
Is the deviation large between microphones? They do
with
get matched.
some brands more than with others. With DPA, they're actually all quite close. Of course, DPA has this legacy in Brendon. I'm probably just butchering the name in Danish, but they made measurement microphones. So their name of the game was always
accuracy.
Accuracy, absolutely, but of course, there can still be pretty big differences. For example, if you have an unmatched set of the 4015s, actually, the subcardioid microphones, so they have a little bit more of a directivity to them. If you have an unmatched set, we've seen some deviations of 3 or 4 decibels at certain frequencies.
Seriously?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because it's you make all of these capsules, and then you'll have to find together which match. It's not that you make a capsule to have a certain frequency spectrum.
No.
So
yeah,
that's how you match them.
Yeah.
And if you want, for example, we're now working on getting our system upgraded to 9.1 or 3D, Dolby Atmos, those kind of things.
Oh, cool.
So that means that our main microphone array from 5 microphones has to be upgraded with 4 or more additional microphones. So those have to be matched as well. So you have to get them rematched and everything like that. So that's how all of that happens. But these microphones are what we use. We use exclusively DPA microphones. Very seldomly we have other microphones, but that's only when we want a certain flavor to it.
We talked about the DPAs and the arrays, and surround recordings, but aside from a band and good instruments and good microphones, of course you need some gear to actually record it.
Absolutely, yeah, you got to put your microphones into something.
Yeah.
So we use emerging happy converters.
But that's not a preamp.
They have preamps built in, actually.
Oh, they do?
They have analog to digital modules, and they have preamps built in. We're currently also exploring what kind of other preamps are there. We can imagine that having more of like a sort of high-end discrete preamp might sound a bit nicer as well. So that's something that we're trying to figure out what difference are there.
Yeah.
But they have preamps. They have really good preamps already built in.
Mm-hmm.
So we convert our microphones directly into there, and they are clocked with the Grim Audio CC2 clock running at DXD.
Nice wooden front.
Nice wooden front, clashes amazingly with the
rest.
aluminum, but yeah.
Oh well.
Merging.
It's grim.
Take note, merging.
Or grim, maybe.
I love the wood, actually. Yeah, very much. It looks great in churches, you know. You always put the whole flight case on a wooden floor and it just blends in the... Not that it matters. I mean, we're talking audio gear. It just has to sound good. Even if it were purple, I would still love it.
Yeah.
So we use that, and then we have our sort of like secret sauce that we use for everything, which is the C80 ground control.
Yeah, it's
that guy
I have
down there.
never used it.
There are so many people who have actually never heard of them, what they do. But Scott, who designed this, is a genius. So I don't know what goes on inside the box, but what it does is it removes so much of the grounding noise that's there.
Maybe it absorbs it and then dissipates it into heat.
Something like that. Probably it does.
Yeah.
I have no clue how it works.
Yeah.
He's told me at one point, but he's so far intellectually beyond my league whatsoever, so I didn't completely get it. But originally I was a little bit skeptic. You always have so many audio tools where the manufacturer says, you know, like, this is going to solve all your problems, you know, the world is going to be a better place if you just use my gear.
We've heard that before.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of gear here from other manufacturers that want us to try something out.
Yeah.
That just really is snake oil, and there's so much snake oil going on. So I was a little bit skeptic at first.
Yeah.
Then we went to high-end Munich, where there was actually a demo on Böhnecke loudspeakers, and I don't know. Böhnecke.
Böhnecke.
They're Austrian or Swiss or something. They actually sound quite good.
Okay.
Not my particular cup of tea, but they sound good.
Yeah.
And so they hooked the C80 up to the amplifier and I think to the DAC as well.
Okay.
And they did some tests, like just showing it how it sounds without and then showing how it sounds with.
There was a difference.
There was a big difference. So I was like,
okay,
this is too much of a difference that I would think could happen. But of course, you know, audio is electricity, so
yeah,
clean up your electricity, clean up your audio. So
yeah.
I asked Scott, like, hey, would it be possible to try this in a recording, actually? Because it should make a difference. Yeah. So we set out to do that, do a little recording test. The first one we did was with piano player Cope, minimal piano music. And we just tried it just on piano itself. And it already made such a big difference that we just kept it. We didn't want to send it back. It was just, it's the same with the Grim, of course, like, hey, let's try it out. And then we fall in love with it and we just got to keep it. There's no way we're sending any of that back. No. Connecting everything is Trptk cabling. So our entire signal chain, recording, mixing, mastering, whatever, all Trptk. Power cables, all with the NCF technology. All of their high-end line cables, speaker cables. Everything Trptk. And then we use JCAT network equipment because our entire system is network audio over IP, as it's called, so Ravenna. We use JCAT network cards, which is something, again, that at first I was a little bit skeptical about, like, is it really going to make a difference? Yeah. Of course, you think, networking guys, we're both a little bit like IT minded. We're thinking data is data, right? Doesn't really matter.
What magic can it do? I had exactly the same with the JCAT network card. It was like, sure. Yeah, send it in. I'll try it. And
of course.
I didn't even feel like testing it because, like, it's a network card. It's an Intel i350. What can it do?
Yeah, exactly.
And I put it in. It's like, holy shit. It does work.
It does, And of course, I trust Marcin completely. He's a very well-respected audio engineer as well.
I talked to him at high end, and he has a good story, and we have the same philosophies. Data is data, but it's the noise.
Yeah.
And we've had some common ground there.
Totally imagine. Yeah. So we use his technology in the network cards that we use for Ravenna on recordings, and then we use the JCAT network switch as well, the M12 Gold switch.
Yeah, lovely.
Very lovely. Very expensive stuff, but again, this is something that we thought if it would make some kind of difference, it would be negligible, and it's actually bigger. Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, I had the small version, and even that was like, wow, okay, what happens?
Yeah.
And it was just blacker backgrounds, and
it really
because it's so much more silent, details are easily audible.
Absolutely. And the thing is, like,
weird.
We get these kind of comments. We do some very small YouTube videos as well, or if we write a blog post, there's always going to be the audio file who says snake oil. It's just doesn't make any difference, or if it does, it's like 0.01%. But the thing is, if you add up all of these 0.1%, you actually get a noticeable difference. And
I did a test once, and my network is mostly optically decoupled, because I believe in, my viewers know I believe in optical, in networking terms, not in audio, but in networking. And I did a test with a friend of mine that is no audio file at all. He just pops by, and we mostly talk about cars. I say, you know what? Sit down. Okay, yeah. It's okay. I press play. It sounds great. I know it sounds great. Okay, but then I switched to the normal network, and he was like, "What the fuck?" It's more boxy. I said, okay, good. You hear a difference? Yeah, it's really easily audible. So even a layman can hear the difference between all the little tweaks combined and no tweaks at all. So like what you said, it's all the small parts, but in the end, it's a big difference.
Absolutely. And it's funny because whose ears are really the best in the entire world. It's not us mastering engineers, and it's not the audiophiles, it's actually musicians.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So here at Trptk we have this really nice couch that artists can just sit on while we're editing and mastering here, so that they can be part of the process, because we really believe in that. I'm really not an expert in mastering. The musicians are, basically, right? I know what buttons to press, but in the end, the musician's hearing is going to be way better than mine, or whichever audio engineer or audiophile, for that matter. So the difference between different types of gear and the difference in certain recording techniques or whatever, we always have a couple of musicians just checking it out. What do you think? And the musicians are way better at noticing these kind of things, like the 1% things.
So in the end, you're the technical guy that knows how to use the microphones, knows how to attach all the microphones, the AD converters, everything, but eventually the musicians are the ears.
Absolutely.
So they're a crucial aspect of the whole recording process.
Absolutely.
Or the mastering process.
I think it's your part as a recording engineer as well. Like some recording engineers do it more and some less, but I think it's always really important to listen to the musician to see what they want to express with their own music, because in the end, they're going to know their music the best. And of course, you have your own ideas about it as a recording engineer, but I think I think you have to be humble in that regard to what the musician wants and how the musician hears it. And they're just, they're much better audiophiles than we are. I mean, they've been training their entire life, right?
Well, we shifted from gear to knowing about how an instrument is supposed to sound. But let's round it off. We've been talking, all day. I think it was very interesting to know how you work, know more about dithering, sampling rates, recording equipment. We have a lovely mastering studio.
I feel blessed to be working there.
Wow, it's really high end. So to all you viewers, this was Trptk Studios in the Netherlands with Brendon Heinst. So check them out. You know now it's legit and they know what they're doing. And
we sometimes do.
If you have any questions, leave them on alphaaudio.nl. Thank you. Bye-bye.